You drive for a living. Not in a city, not picking up people every few blocks, but across vast empty highways, through dust-covered towns, forgotten border roads, mountain passes and forests that seem to go on forever. You're a long-haul bus driver. You don't just transport things. You live the road. And that life, it sucks more than most people could imagine. You don't have weekends. You don't even have days in the normal sense. Your calendar is whatever the delivery schedule says. You could be driving 12, 14, even 18 hours straight, sleeping in the backseat of your cab or not sleeping at all. Time blurs. You forget what day it is. Sometimes you forget what state you're in. All you know is asphalt, white lines, and the faint sound of tires humming over cracked pavement. Your bus isn't for people. It's packed with goods, sometimes expensive, sometimes sensitive, and always under pressure to arrive on time. You don't get to stop and enjoy the scenery. You don't get to take detours. There's a GPS tracker on you at all times. Someone at dispatch is watching every turn you take. You are the link in the supply chain that no one notices, unless you mess up. The job? Lonely doesn't even begin to cover it. Most of your hours are spent in silence, just you, the engine, and whatever noise you create to drown out the thoughts in your head. You drive through deserts with no signal, forests with no lights, mountains with no margin for error. And when the sun sets and everything around you disappears into blackness, you start to feel it. That creeping, hollow kind of loneliness that no music or podcast can fix. You pull over sometimes, not because you want to, but because your eyes are starting to blur. You find a spot on the side of a dead road in the middle of nowhere, maybe a forest clearing, maybe an empty highway shoulder. And as you try to rest, the silence becomes a problem. It's too quiet. Every sound outside feels like something. A branch snapping, gravel crunching, the wind howling. Your mind starts to play tricks. Is it just an animal or something else? You've heard the stories. Every driver has. Stories of buses being flagged down in the middle of the night by strange figures with no visible car nearby. Of knocks on the door at 3 a.m. in the middle of a forest where no one should be. Of shadows darting across the road just out of your headlights. Some say it's just fatigue messing with your senses, but enough drivers have talked about it that you start to wonder. And then there are the real dangers. Bandits in some regions, highway robbers, hijackers, people who know you're transporting something valuable, people who don't care if you're just trying to make a living. You drive with one eye on the rearview mirror, not just for vehicles, but for threats. You don't carry weapons, most companies forbid it, you're just expected to figure it out, to avoid danger, to survive it. You've had close calls. Every long-haul driver has. That moment where you nearly dozed off and woke up just before veering off the road. That night you parked beside another driver and found out in the morning his bus was broken into while he was asleep. The time you saw headlights behind you that wouldn't pass, just tailing you for over 40 minutes. No one teaches you how to deal with that. You're on your own. And then there's the physical toll. Your back is wrecked from sitting so long. Your neck cramps, your legs swell, you eat whatever you can find at highway stalls. Sometimes it's stale, sometimes you're not even sure what it is. You drink too much coffee, not enough water, and sleep in awkward positions with one eye open. Your body is breaking down, but you have to keep going. Because deliveries don't wait, and neither does rent. Your family barely sees you. Friends stop inviting you places because you're never in town. Birthdays, weddings, holidays, you miss them. You promise you'll make it next time, but you know it's a lie. The road owns you now. You're always in motion, but never really arriving anywhere. And all for what? For a paycheck that barely compensates the risk? For bosses who only call when something goes wrong? For customers who complain when their shipment is late but never once think about the miles you had to cross, the storms you had to drive through, the sleep you had to sacrifice? You try to find meaning in the little things. A perfect sunrise over the mountains, a friendly roadside vendor who remembers your name, another driver flashing their lights in a silent hello. But those moments are brief, and they never last long enough to take the edge off. You're constantly calculating. How far until the next rest stop? How much fuel left? How late am I? How far can I push before my body shuts down? You're a human being, but the job treats you like a moving part, something to be used until it wears out and gets replaced. One night, you're driving through a stretch of road that cuts straight through a dense forest. No lights, no signals. The GPS flickers for a second, then blanks out. You've taken this route before, and still, every time, it feels like something out of a nightmare. The trees lean over the road like they're watching you. The fog creeps in low, sliding across the asphalt like smoke. Your headlights barely pierce through it. You try to focus. You grip the wheel tighter. It's 2:17 a.m., and your last rest stop was 4 hours ago. Your hands ache, your eyes itch. You haven't seen another vehicle in nearly an hour. There's nothing but darkness ahead and behind. Just you, your loaded bus, and that growing sense that something isn't right. Then you see it. Something on the road up ahead, a figure, standing still. No reflective gear, no flashlight, just standing there in the middle of the lane. You slow down, your heart thumps faster. As your lights reach them, they turn. And there's no face, or maybe your mind just refuses to see one. You blink and suddenly they're gone. You tell yourself it's nothing. Lack of sleep, a shadow, a tree. You keep going. But the air in the cabin feels colder now. You check the locks, you turn up the radio just to hear something, anything. But the sound doesn't help, it only reminds you how alone you are. When you finally pull over to rest, it's not because you're tired, it's because you're unraveling. You step out to stretch your legs, but the forest is too quiet. There's no wind, no insects, just that oppressive silence. You don't stay outside long. You get back in, lock the doors, and sleep with the engine running. The next day you talk to another driver at a fuel station, and you casually bring up that stretch of forest. He looks at you, serious. Says he never drives it at night anymore. Says one time something knocked twice on his door while he was parked there. Hard knocks, deliberate. But when he looked out, there was nothing. Just trees. And that's how it goes. Every veteran driver has a story. Some speak of ghosts, others of people who vanished. Some refuse to talk at all. But all of you know that out there on the forgotten roads, in the dead zones where GPS dies and signals vanish, something waits. Maybe it's just the darkness. Maybe it's the fatigue. Or maybe it's something else entirely. But you don't get to stop, not really. You push it all down, you keep driving, and even when you get back home, you're not really home. Because your body's still wired for the road. You wake up at 3 a.m. without reason. You still hear engine hums in your sleep. Your kids barely know how to be around you anymore. You miss so many firsts and lasts. Time passes faster when you're always moving, and one day you realize how much you've missed while chasing deliveries across endless miles. And despite everything, the fear, the exhaustion, the pain, you're still not respected. People cut you off on highways. They get annoyed if you're slow through city streets. They don't realize how heavy your vehicle is, how long it takes to brake, how dangerous it is for you to swerve. They just want you out of the way. You're not just a driver. You're a lifeline for towns that rely on supplies, for companies that need their cargo, for people who never think about how their goods got to their doorstep. They don't know that you crossed state lines through blizzards, deserts, forested hills, and ghost towns to get it there. But even with that responsibility, you're disposable. Miss one deadline and you're labeled unreliable. Get sick and you're expected to push through. Complain and you're told to toughen up. No one talks about the long-term toll, the mental health issues, the sleep disorders, the stress, the heart problems. They just want results. And so, you keep moving. You fill up the tank. You check the tires. You wipe down the windshield, set the GPS, and head out again. Into the same, long, lonely road where anything can happen and no one would know for hours, maybe days. You become a ghost with a job, a phantom in the system, always seen but never truly noticed. Because that's the truth. That's why it sucks to be a bus driver, who carries the weight of miles, roads, stories, and silence. Alone. Every single day.